Thank you. I'm going to start our recording now, Dr. Barnard, and during the breaks, we'll get to talk, and so people that are listening to the show will not hear this unless they watch us on YouTube, okay?
Great.
And so perhaps what you were talking about being in Miami will be a good link to how we heal.
Okay, I love it.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. It's time to dance.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me.
I think this is the first time we're doing Zoom, aren't we?
Right here waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful best day ever. And for those of you who are new to the Lillian McDermott radio show, the purpose of the show is to provide a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening friend, will feel empowered to learn a new truth and live the life of your dreams. And for those of you who are listening today, I want you to put this number on your speed dial. It's 407-373-5959. 407-373-5959. If you have any questions for Dr. Barnard today, or if you want a chance to win a ticket, two passes, two golden tickets, the gift cards from Native Sun, so that it'll help you restock your pantry after the storm. Call this after the show. So first two callers, 407-373-5959. But today, we're going to talk about a sobering topic, which is pain. Many of us live with pain, and according to the results of the 2015 National Survey of Drug Use and Health, an estimated 119 million Americans ages 12 and older used prescription pain medications in the previous year. That is 44.5% of the population. And if you are part of the statistics, listen up. Because today we have world-renowned, New York bestselling author, teacher, and activist, Dr. Neal Barnard, because he is back to share how we can alleviate this pain naturally, and in some cases without toxicity. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Dr. Neal Barnard is with us again. Welcome, Dr. Barnard, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show.
It's great to be back with you. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I am so excited because, everybody I know, and I have to share this story with you real quick. I had a woman out of the blue from my neighborhood many, many years ago call me and ask me if I had pain medication in my possession.
Right.
I said, I don't use that stuff. I don't. And she goes, are you sure? Do you know somebody? And later I found out she was addicted to pain medication. Sad situation. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Barnard, and how you have learned that pain can be alleviated naturally.
Yes, I'm a medical doctor. I went to medical school at George Washington University here in Washington, D.C., where I live now. And I did a residency then in psychiatry, and I'm a board-certified psychiatrist. However, along the way, I got very interested in some other ways of things that we can bring into our medical tool bag, particularly foods, and how foods can adjust body chemistry in various ways. So I'm still at the George Washington University, but I'm on the adjunct faculty in the Department of Internal Medicine, and I'm also a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. So we're trying to bring lots of different disciplines into this. But the point that you mentioned earlier is really true. A lot of people are on pain medications. They think they can't get off of them. Partly that's because of the addictive nature of these, but part of it, a big part of it, is that we're not addressing the fundamental issue that's causing the pain in the first place. And so if we can zero in and tackle those things, look at what's causing the pain, look at natural, healthy solutions to it, maybe we can kind of get off this not very healthy pathway that a lot of us are on, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true. People believe that once they start, and I think the pharmaceutical industry would like for us to believe this as well, that when people start taking medication, you will always be in that medication. If we just were to step away and think, if I could profit in you being sick, I would make sure my medications wouldn't be good enough to make you healthy. So why is it that we're falling into this trap, the cycle, like a hamster on a wheel? How can we get off of it?
You said it. It really is true. The pharmaceutical manufacturers are looking for conditions that don't go away, conditions that last for a long period of time, or that they can make a case for. And so I hate to say it, but the pursuit of the dollar has meant that they're really not looking for lasting solutions. But I have to tell you, one of the areas that really grabbed me in looking at this was back pain. A lot of people have back pain. And later in the show, I want to share with you why the back pain actually starts. Because so many people get out of bed, they don't feel good. During the day, they can't exercise the way they would like to. They're taking lots and lots of medications, never knowing what the actual causes of that back pain might be. Because I think those are going to surprise you.
Interesting, because I am truly passionate about, it's not that I'm against pills. I am for doing everything we can to live the life that we need to live. And so today we are talking with Dr. Neal Barnard, and we're going to hopefully learn a different way that we can alleviate our pain when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Good job, Dr. Barnard. Let me just make sure that we are off the air. Maybe not. Okay, so now we're going to record this. We're still recording, but if you need to get off, just let me know that you need for me to stop the recording.
Everything is fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so as we look into and we dive deep into this, my registered service mark, I've shared it with you before, is you can take a pill, you can take responsibility. I'm not against taking pills, because I do know that short term pills can alleviate pain, right?
Yes. If you whack your thumb with a hammer, this may not be the time to eat asparagus. It may be that an aspirin's a good thing for you. Ibuprofen, perfect during that circumstance. It's if you're whacking your head every single day, we got to figure out what is that hammer and how to stop it.
I love your combination between psychiatry and nutrition and cardiology. I mean, how did you make all these different links? It's almost like playing hopscotch, you're with medical. If you think about it, most doctors, they specialize in one thing and one thing only, but you have step outside the boundaries.
Well, I think specializing is a really good idea. My career's been a goofy one, and I didn't intend it to be this way. When I went to medical school, all I was interested in was the human brain and why people do the things they do and why things go wrong, and that's what I wanted to do. But in the course of my practice, I was asked by a foundation to help them design some research studies in diabetes. And I thought, okay, let me see if I can help you. And in the course of that, we started to see the power of food. And that led me into lots and lots and lots of areas, including the pain of diabetic neuropathy and lots of other things. So we started to devise solutions to it. And so I kind of had to step outside my personal box a little bit there.
Every time I tell people, you could reverse or lower your medication within 2 weeks when you eat a certain way, they go, no way. Why is it that we still don't know this, Dr. Barnard?
Well, sometimes the research is new. And sometimes the research is just too surprising. Let me give you an example. Before we went to the break, I was talking about back pain. Mm-hmm. And you could have blown me away with this. Researchers in Scandinavia started looking at are there lifestyle factors that predict back pain? Sort of like for heart disease. If a person develops heart disease.
Oh no, here we go. That means that we need to say this with our listening friends. So here we go.
Right here waiting for you.
I am at the edge of my seat, Dr. Barnard.
You can text Lillian McDermott or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
Oh my goodness. I just absolutely love my intermissions, my time away from the show to have a private conversation with Dr. Barnard. And if you want to watch this, you can go to whenyouneedafriend.com, click onto my YouTube link, and it'll take you. Shortly after the show, I post the conversation that we have on and off the air. And today's teacher is Dr. Neal Barnard, world-renowned, best-selling author, and just very passionate. And he links all the different parts of us. We're not just one-dimensional. We're mind, body, spirit. And Dr. Barnard, you've got it on. You've got it going on, because you do. You've got the knowledge of the brain, knowledge of the body, and I know that you're very spiritual as well. And so let's talk about, you were sharing about the mind-blowing information about back pain.
Yeah, this was such a shock. Researchers in Scandinavia started to try to track down what leads to back pain. And the backstory on this, if I can use that word, for heart disease, back in the 1950s, researchers started saying, wait, stop just treating heart attacks. Try to see if we can figure out what led to it. So high blood pressure, smoking, high cholesterol levels, obesity, these were called risk factors for heart disease. So the back researchers said, well, could we do the same thing with back pain? Are there things that lead to it? And the first thing they picked on was smoking. Smokers had more back pain. And you think, wait a minute, cigarettes aren't heavy. Why would a smoker have back pain? And so they started looking inside the human body, and what they found was amazing. That when people had chronic back pain, it wasn't just a strained muscle or something like that. The arteries going to the lower back were blocked off with atherosclerosis. They were blocked off with the typical artery blockages that you can see in the heart. And smoking makes those blockages happen. So here's what I'm saying. Your heart is here in your chest. It gives off the aorta, which does a big U-turn and goes right down in front of your spine. And it gives off arteries to every vertebral segment, including the lumbar segments in the lower back.
Okay.
If you're a smoker, then those segments start to clog off with blockages, atherosclerotic blockages. You lose the blood flow to that part of the back. And then what if you have a little bit of trauma that wouldn't have hurt you earlier, but now without blood flow, you can't heal. And so what we are now realizing is that back pain should be treated like heart disease. So yes, you could take medications day after day after day, and you could limit your activity and walk with a cane. But what we are also saying now is for chronic lower back pain. You got some 20-year-old kid who starts to say, oh, gee, I'm really got some back issues. The very first place in the body where arteries get narrowed is not in the heart, and it's not in the arteries to the brain. It's in the arteries to the lower back. So that's why I'm a big champion, as you know, of heart-healthy diets. I'm throwing out the meat and the cheese, and I'm eating my vegetables and fruits and whole grains and beans, because that keeps those arteries open. And if they are narrowed, let's say I'm 40 years old, I've had narrowed arteries, I got a little bit of chest pain, a little bit of back pain. If you change your diet and lifestyle, then those arteries start to reopen, and you get that blood flow, and you get the oxygen, and you get the healing nutrients. So what we are encouraging people with back pain to do is not to rest more than they need to, be physically active as much as your doctor or healthcare provider will permit, eat a completely healthy diet. In my book, that means a low-fat vegan diet.
Sure.
And you got to throw away the tobacco yesterday. And those things will help you.
That's good to know. So it's amazing information that we talk about here on the Lillian McDermott radio show. However, it seems too simple. And some people feel that to take away their steak, to take away their dairy, to take away that, it's like to take away who they are. And the reality is we're not a piece of meat. We're not that. So let's go back and look at these effects that we're doing, because we'd rather just take a pill than give up on foods. They think we're giving up, and instead of embracing health. So let's talk about how good these pain pills are, that it completely numbs us up.
Oh man, I got to tell you, you're breaking my heart with what you just said, Lillian. Let me back up and tell you a little story.
Sure.
I was in Miami this past weekend because my nephew was getting married,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, that is a city that was really hit hard by the
Yes.
hurricane just a week before, and we weren't sure if the wedding would go on. Well, the city's cleaned up. You know, it's not perfect, but it's getting back on its feet. And the wedding was actually beautiful. And to me, that's kind of a little metaphor.
Yes.
The body can be ravaged by the hurricanes we give it in our own lives, but you can heal at least to a degree. But I want to tell you something. While I was there was a man who was attending the wedding, who I've known for some time. And he was walking with a cane. And I said, he's younger than me. So he's not an elderly guy. I said, what's going on? And he said, I've been diagnosed with peripheral artery disease. He's got arterial disease all the way from his aorta, all the way down his legs. And his feet are now ulcerating because of a lack of blood flow. Mm. And I said, well, okay, whatever medical treatments you need, good, but let's change your diet because atherosclerosis, the narrowings, can improve. Well, we talked a little bit about that. He was a little skeptical, just as kind of you were saying. People don't embrace this message. They don't imagine that they can really get better. And then when the dinner came, I ordered my vegetarian one for, at the dinner reception, mm-hmm. and he ate this huge chunk of steak. And I said, this is, he's not a bad guy, and he's not different from anybody else. But our culture builds these habits into us that we can't imagine that there's a better way, but there is a better way. I've known so many people where they make a change in their diet and their lifestyle, and their arteries do open up again, and their feet suddenly have a pulse again, and they're feeling better, and their chest pain goes away. It's not instant, but it can be a few weeks. It doesn't take long. You do start feeling better quite quickly. And the more you do it and the more you stick with it, people feel better and better and better. So our biggest issue now is not just doing the research and proving that it works, but it's also helping people to understand that they really can feel better. This doesn't mean throwing away your medications or canceling your doctor's appointment. It means bringing in more powerful tools so that you won't need, hopefully, all those other treatments.
Absolutely. I love your analogy. That's how resilient we are. People don't believe that we're that resilient. I don't know why, because we are that resilient. I think we are what we believe as well as what we eat. And so as we talk about the effectiveness of pain medication, once you start taking medications, that's going to create another symptom and another symptom. So let's talk about why pain medications work and why they hurt.
Yeah, well, pain medications do have a role, as we were talking before, for short-term pain. And you stub your toe, fair enough. You can take the painkiller if you really need it. The problem is that they're readjusting brain chemistry in such a way that in some cases they make other pains hurt more later. Here's what I'm saying. You're getting a stress headache because of whatever, and you're not dealing with it in another way. And if you're taking painkillers every day for your headache, what can happen is the body accommodates to that, and then you can end up with a chronic daily headache all the time because of the overuse of pain medications. So the answer is to use pain medications only when you need them and only for as long as you need them. And if the cause is something that we can address, tackle the cause directly. Because a whole lot of people get hooked on pain medications. When I was a medical resident, there was one of the medical students who said, I've got terrible migraines. Could you give me a narcotic painkiller, but only for a day? I don't want to take a lot. And I said, okay. And then about a month later, the dean of the medical school called me up and he said, did you give painkillers to this medical student? I said, yes, I did. He was in terrible pain. And he said, do you realize that this medical student had been hitting up all the residents in the hospital for a day of medication here and 2 days there and 3 days there?
Oh my.
He was a young, smart guy, a professional who had been hooked on painkillers and now had to turn to being deceitful and destroying his own career. But you've read the headlines just like I have. Yeah. This abuse of pain medications is all over the place. And it always starts out innocently with, I just needed it to get through the day, but we don't tackle the cause.
And the cause is usually possibly something that we're not dealing with.
Yeah, it very often can be. And some of these will blow you away. I got a call the other day. Oh, not the other day. This is in the past. I got a call from a young woman who said, Dr. Barnard, I can't get out of bed. I said, what's the matter? She said, I've got such bad menstrual cramps about one day every month. I just can't move. And my mother told me I should call you and you could help me. And I said, okay, let me give you some painkillers to get you through the next 2-3 days. But have you thought about making a diet change? And this completely blew her away. She said, what are you talking about? I've got cramps. How could foods help me? Mm-hmm. What people did not realize, and when I made this suggestion, I was not entirely sure of this. But as she was describing her situation, I thought, wait a minute. We knew from cancer patients that foods will affect hormones in a woman's body. And if I can get her hormones back into better balance, maybe the cramps won't be so bad next month. This was just a hypothesis at the time. She called me back a month later, and she had gone on a totally vegan diet as I had recommended, and her period just arrived, no pain whatsoever.
Wow.
I feel so great. So I then did a clinical trial on this, where I brought in a large group of women who had chronic cramps, and every month there was one day where they were taking fistfuls of ibuprofen, feeling terrible. And what we showed is that if you use foods in the right way, you can get hormones into better balance. So you're still having your regular cycle, but instead of the excesses, the pain goes away. And can I just kind of trace out the biochemistry?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm sure people are thinking, what are you talking about? I eat sweet potatoes and that's going to help my stomach? What are you talking about? Here's what happens. Every month, a woman has a little more estrogen made, particularly in the second half of the month, because the uterus is the most optimistic organ in the body. Every month it thinks we're going to get pregnant for sure. So the lining thickens up in anticipation of pregnancy, but then it discovers we're not pregnant, so that whole lining disintegrates, and that's menstrual flow. But when that happens, the disintegrating lining releases prostaglandins into the bloodstream. That causes the crampiness, and the cramps come from the prostaglandins are trying to stop the blood flow, and it causes this rotten pain. If you ate a really high-fat, meaty diet, the amount of estrogen in your blood is higher, the uterine thickening is greater, the prostaglandin production is bigger, and you get this big wallop at the end of the month. So what I had suggested to this young woman was vegan diet, keep the oils really low, see how you do, and that's what we found helps. And the more you adhere to it all month long, not just at the end, the better you feel.
That's great information. I understand that some people think that eating vegan is potato chips and Coke but we're not talking about just things that don't have animal protein or animal products, and we're not talking about processed foods that don't contain animal products. You're talking about the whole food. 4
groups: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans. There's not a potato chip group, actually. And,
gosh.
And yeah, I'm sorry to break your heart. And sodas are not health food, even if it's Dr. Pepper. So I'm sorry to tell you. Yeah. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, those are the 4 healthy groups.
Very good. And so now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, because it's so important that, we've talked about cramps, we talked about back pain, but what are some of the other things that we can consume? Like nutritional medicine is excellent. There's so much evidence to that. That's not new. It's new to us. It's just not new. It's just like saying the world is not flat anymore, right? Okay, so exactly right. And so we're going to continue and learn, and in between the breaks, we're going to have a conversation. You may want to tune in on YouTube later on. And we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Barnard when we return worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. It's so nice to see your beautiful face, Dr. Barnard. You live what you speak of.
Thank you.
And I love the analogy of Miami and how people do heal and how we are resilient. I do believe that with all my heart. Again.
It is really so true. And to help people to kind of get over their fears of, do I dare make a change? When we do research studies, I always feel like people are kind of on the edge of a swimming pool, and everybody's swimming. It's a hot summer day. They look like they're having a blast, but do I really want to jump in? I'm not sure. The water might be cold. And the message is set aside the fear, jump in. You're going to have a great time. So when people start with a healthy diet, it's very much like that. Jump in. You're going to love it.
I like that. I like that analogy as well. I know that there are times I love to jump in, and there are times that I like to inch in.
Yeah.
So for people that like to inch in to, like, for example, I don't like to go into pools, but my grandchildren like to go into pools. And if I were to tell them they cannot go into a pool, then I would be the bad grandmother. Although I know it's such a, the more you know, the more you have to kind of like say, okay, I grew up in pools, I'm okay. So I went into a pool and it was room temperature, not room temperature, but it was like, it was cooler than my body. Let me just put it this way. And I just couldn't jump into the pool. And it was because I wasn't sure I was in the right place. So how do we get people to know that the right place for them are foods that they may not necessarily call sexy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody kind of has their own way in. And there are some people who either just their personality or in some cases their degree of desperation makes them jump in. They've got to jump in. The person that I was describing who was in such pain from his peripheral artery disease, who was at this wedding in Miami, he needed to jump in right away because
Absolutely.
he was really hurting himself. But there are others where you've got a little bit more time, or just the degree of skepticism people have is so great. For me, I grew up in North Dakota. I never met a vegetarian or vegan. I never heard of things like tofu or hummus or what are you talking about? And so you gradually, you kind of learn and also, this will shock you a little bit. I don't think people should give up skepticism. I think, somebody like me says to you, I can heal your menstrual pain or I can help you do it with diet change. You ought to be skeptical about that because it sounds kind of crazy. But then I have to trace out the biology and how food creates hormone changes. The hormone changes will affect how you feel at the end of the month. Then it makes sense. So no, I think people should be skeptical. I think they should kind of do their own research, whatever that means for them, and jump in at their own pace.
Very good. I like that advice. You're it's been nice to see you this time. This is the first time that we do a recording. It's really nice to have you here and be present with one another because, when you look into somebody's eyes, whether you're on a screen or if you're in person, you get to see not just only their truth, but their intention as well. And I can see that your intention is so pure that you really do. You've crossed the. Do we have 5 seconds or Brian? I'm seeing 5 seconds there on the side. Did we start? Are we having a conversation on the air?
I sent that a long time ago.
Oh, okay. I thought we were having a conversation on the air. Phew. Okay. So as you know, when we come back, I'll talk about a little bit about my social media, but then I'll reintroduce you again, Dr.
But
Barnard.
we may not be on the air, but you're recording anyway, so people are going to see everything you and I say.
Exactly.
Hello, everybody who's watching this.
Absolutely. Okay. And, unfortunately, we don't have the split screen side by side. So if you're not speaking, then you're not being seen. But that's something that we're going to have to figure out because I love seeing your expressions when you're like getting your responses ready for what I'm saying. So I'd love to talk about this fear. When we return, I also want to talk about other things that we can do, like supplements, herbs.
Yes, and I want to talk with you about some things that really bug people, like rheumatoid arthritis and migraine.
Oh, of course.
And inflammatory conditions that so many people have.
I have gotten so much slack, or is it slack from my registered service mark because you could take a pill, you could take responsibility, and people use the word responsibility in a way that I do not intend it. And I'll talk about that when we come back on the air.
Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where you can hear us worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. I am your host, Lillian McDermott, and it is my goal that we learn from each other. Go through life with childlike wonder. Pretend you don't know anything, because when you live your life like that, you're open to a new truth. And this is the new truth that we talk about on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show. Today's new truth is how to heal without toxicity in your body using natural resources. Isn't that a wonderful concept? Well, are you ready for that? Are you ready to release some of the things that are not good for you and embrace health? If you think that you're going to, miss out on your cookies and your pies and your steak, then of course that's going to set you up for failure. But if you think that whatever you're doing is embracing health, then what do you have to lose? You have everything to gain. And so I want to encourage you to look at the word responsibility in a way that is empowering, as opposed to blame, shame, fault, or duty. When you think of responsibility like that, you're setting yourself up for failure. So here's what I'm talking about. I'm asking you to be open to a new truth, to consider what Dr. Barnard is talking about today, and consider all the other conversations we've had. And I'm asking you to please become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com so the conversation can continue off the air. Just like we're taking little breaks and Dr. Barnard and I are talking between, you can catch that at YouTube. You could also become a subscriber and this conversation will come on all the time. You'll have it at your disposal. And so when you become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com, not only will you get my 90-day challenge to self-love ebook, but you will also get my 90-day challenge to self-love ebook, but you'll also get access to my mind, body, spirit, positive affirmation audio link. And the show will be sent to your tablet or your phone. You don't even have to try. It just comes right to you with a topic and what we're going to be talking about. So grow with me at whenyouneedafriend.com. Check out my sponsors. Figure out a way that you can support them as they're supporting the show. Also grow with me on Instagram at Lillian McDermott, Twitter Lillian MCD, Facebook.com/Lillian's Radio Show, where I always put information on the show. And you can follow me on demand on iTunes, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio. And like I mentioned before, be the first and second caller or texter to call after the show is done, 407-373-5959, and you will receive one gift card. The first two callers will receive a $20 gift card from Native Son. Go Native. So today we are talking to none other than world-renowned New York bestseller, Dr. Neal Barnard. And so we're talking about how to heal pain without toxicity. So Dr. Barnard, I love all your tips on and off the air. And so let's talk about all these conditions, the Macarena of, the head, the shoulders, the back, of getting older, that we have said, okay, that's because we're getting older. That's not true, is it?
No, it's not true. And so many things we think of, well, it's just because of old age. It not necessarily. What it sometimes is accumulating damage that over the years we've been sort of hurting ourselves. And so the older you are, it's just the longer that you've had those little hammers in your body. A classic example is rheumatoid arthritis. Some people get it very early in life, some people get it later. But rheumatoid arthritis is this common condition. You turn on the TV at night and you'll see commercials for antibody-based treatments, these what they call so-called biologics. And you see in the commercial, they'll say, if you've had tuberculosis or been exposed to various conditions, you shouldn't take them. What they're saying is that these medications not only cost $20,000 or $30,000 a year, but they also disable the immune system, so you have more trouble fighting infections. Now, that doesn't mean that no one should ever use them. There are some people who perhaps should. But for many people with inflammatory conditions, especially rheumatoid arthritis, sometimes it's a food that's triggering the inflammation. Well, how can that be? If you look in a swollen joint, a joint with arthritis, it could be the joints of your hands or your elbows or somewhere else. That joint is inflamed. The synovial lining of the joint is being attacked by antibodies. And here's what I mean. Your body makes these little protein torpedoes called antibodies, and they attack the lining of the joint. But what were they trying to do? What they were trying to do was to attack something that you might have ingested or inhaled, some protein that got in your body, and that's what the antibodies are for. Well, what could have set this off? Probably the biggest one is dairy protein. So many people, they think, well, milk for calcium and so forth, but not realizing that the dairy proteins will trigger an antibody reaction in their body. At least that's what we think is going on. So those antibodies are there to try to attack the dairy protein, and they inadvertently, through friendly fire, if I can put it that way, attack the joints. Now, don't take this on faith. If you have rheumatoid arthritis, what I suggest you do is you're taking your medicines, you're doing whatever you're doing, but make a big diet change. for 3 or 4 weeks. Get off all the dairy. In fact, get off the animal products completely and see how you feel. If you find that your joints are just feeling better and better and better, if your morning stiffness starts to diminish, if your ability to move is improving day by day, you can talk to your doctor about weaning off what other medications you might be on. We see a similar approach with migraine. So many people have food triggers, and if they go online, they see aged cheeses and red wines, and there's one or two others. There are many more than that. Number one, again, dairy protein. It could be egg protein, it could be meat, but it could also be something like tomatoes or citrus. And so you sometimes have to do an elimination diet where you focus on just the foods we know for sure are safe, like rice and cooked vegetables and a limited number of foods for just a few days while your head kind of cools down from the migraines. And then you put the foods back in one at a time and see if one or more of them will trigger the headaches or trigger the joint pain.
How much time, Dr. Barnard, do we go when we're doing the elimination diet? How much time do you think we should allow before we say, I'm going to bring it back?
Yeah. Ideally, you wait until the condition is gone. For many people, it will be gone. It depends on what it is. If it's migraine, sometimes they're gone within a week or two, or sometimes shorter. If it's rheumatoid arthritis, it can take a little bit longer, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Or if it's not gone, you need a substantial reduction, because what we're trying to see is if a food is a trigger or an accentuator of pain, if you're not seeing any benefit from getting away from them, then you're not going to be able to notice if the foods are a problem or not when you bring them back. And this is also why I encourage people not to just eliminate one food. I said dairy might be the issue, but what if you're sensitive to dairy and eggs?
Together.
You only leave both of them. What if you only eliminate one, your arthritis doesn't go away, and you think, gee, I guess food didn't make a difference. This is why I encourage people to go on a pretty basic diet. And this is not a luxurious diet for the first week or so. It's really basic because you're trying to get all the bad suspects out. And then when your migraines are gone or your joints are feeling better, you start bringing the foods back in and bring in a lot of it, a generous amount, one every 2 days. If it triggers a headache, leave it out again and let yourself cool down and then bring in the next food. I wrote a book about this years ago called Foods That Fight Pain. And I laid out the elimination diet and what our pain-safe foods are. And it works for a great many people. We did this with migraine sufferers. And I'll never forget this law student who came in who said, she was here at Georgetown Law School. She said, I can't study. Can't do anything. When I get a migraine, it lasts for 2 days, and this is killing my career. And she did an elimination diet. She found dairy was a big thing for her. She hasn't had a migraine since. And she's now working for the government and doing great. And I don't mean to say that food is magic. There are some people who may not get an effect, but give it a shot and see what it'll do for you.
Very good. Well, you call it, and I had someone call me out on this, and I'm not calling you out at all, but I want to hear your opinion on it.
Please.
When I say animal protein, they were saying you're kind of like making that myth that only animal is protein. And so they said, call it animal products.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's true, because when people say meat, kind of, you and I grew up with this idea, we'd call it protein.
Yes.
Well, meat it has some protein, has some fat and the occasional tapeworm and some cholesterol.
Oh, and who doesn't want tapeworm in the morning? So
I think meat is an animal product. That's really true. And the other funny thing is that people think that protein isn't in plants. But, if you ate nothing but broccoli, but you ate the normal amount of, don't do this, but if you ate nothing but broccoli all day long and you ate, say, 2,000 calories, that's 146 grams of pure protein. If the next day, if you ate nothing but lentils and, say, a 2,000 calorie diet of nothing but lentils, it's about 157 grams of protein. So plants have protein too. We don't want to put down our old friend, the bean, who has been looking after us all these years.
And the bean probably has more protein than meat, and it has the fiber to go along with it.
Well, it's got a little calcium, it's got protein, it's got soluble fiber. It doesn't have a good lobby group cheerleading for it, but I need to cheerlead for my friend, the bean.
Well, we're gonna start a little cheering cycle here, cheering session for the beans, because many people have misconceptions about beans. But when we come back from the break, Dr. Barnard, I would love to talk about supplements and herbs that we can also take, because we like to do little things like that to kind of enhance our poor diet. And so we're
natural painkillers.
Awesome. And we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Neal Barnard when we return worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. We'll be right here waiting for you. Phew, I got that one really close. Okay, I wanted to go back, Dr. Barnard, and you talked about the morning stiffness when you eat animal products.
Right.
So this morning stiffness, I had Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn say, if you want a little bit of erectile dysfunction, have a little bit of meat. So let's talk about that morning stiffness.
I get where you're coming from.
Okay, so we were talking about rheumatoid arthritis for most people. You know, I want men to listen as well about this.
I hope they do.
But they might be saying, I don't have rheumatoid arthritis, but talk about my morning stiffness. Now that's a problem.
Well, we should talk about that, because I have to say, when we do research studies here, people come in, they make a diet change for some other reason. They've got diabetes or whatever. But I cannot tell you how many people find their erectile dysfunction completely goes away. In the course of one of our research studies, we didn't tell them that, but that is a big, that is a little bit of an eye opener for them, I guess I've got to say, for them and their wife too. So,
well, when you said, I was going to say it on the air, and I'm like, no, I need to practice discipline.
No,
because sometimes, I'm not saying all men. They might hear something like rheumatoid arthritis, or they might hear something like that. And it's like, oh, no big deal. I'll deal with it. But when you attack their sexuality, they might be willing to move towards something different other than taking that yellow pill or whatever the color pill it is.
It's blue.
Blue. And don't ask you why you know. No.
The reason I know, don't you remember?
You're a doctor.
No, don't you remember this? This was years ago. I think it was Bob Dole or something like that was on TV, and he was talking about, he was a spokesperson for the little blue pill.
You're right.
And they cost 10. This is what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. They cost $10 each.
Yeah.
So somebody's making a ton of money off of this. And do you think they want to say your erectile dysfunction will get better with a vegan diet? No, they don't want to touch that. They want to say take that pill and pay $10 a throw for it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to make this a teaser. Excuse the pun. I'm going to tell them to come listen to the show if they want to learn about it, morning stiffness. but here's the thing. That $10 a pill, if we were to average that $10 a pill in a month, let's average it. I hear people say all the time, I can't afford to eat vegan. I cannot afford to eat organic. I cannot. I'm like, no, you can. I had a marathon runner who travels all around running marathons tell me they could not afford it. And I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't it cost money to enter these marathons? Doesn't it cost money to travel, stay at a hotel? Is it that you don't make it a priority, or is it that you really don't have the money?
You're going to save money. People imagine that being, say, following a vegan diet, which is what I recommend. People imagine that means that you're going to an expensive store and having hand-rolled organic sushi things.
Here we go. This is our last dance, Dr. Barnard.
I'll be right here waiting for you.
You can text Lillian
can you
McDermott
read real
or
quick
leave
what
her
I
a
wrote
voicemail at
earlier about offering the book?
407-373-5959.
Yeah, sure.
Once
You wanna
again,
do that?
here's Lillian.
This one?
Yes. You want to do that?
Love to.
Awesome. Okay. For those of you who will be listening to the show or watching the show on YouTube, I want to encourage you to listen to this particular segment, especially if you want to learn about how animal products affect men. And when it comes to sexual dysfunction or impotence, you do need to hit this YouTube button and listen later. Dr. Barnard has offered 2 free books for our callers as well. Foods That Fight Pain. It's an excellent, there you go. You can see it on YouTube. And it's an excellent, I don't have the book. I wanted the book, but perhaps I get a copy too.
Absolutely.
But these are foods that fight pain. So here you go. That's the first thing if you call. So we'll make this really attractive. Not only are you going to get a $20 gift card from Native Son for the first two callers, you'll also get a free book called Foods That Fight Pain. So when you go to Native Son, you can buy some of these foods. Now, Dr. Barnard, that's very generous of you. So thank you very much for that.
I'm glad to do it.
I appreciate it. Okay, and I also want a copy too. Maybe the PDF. That's all I need is the PDF. Okay, so we've talked about foods and how they alleviate pain naturally. We don't want to buy into this philosophy that we are what we eat. We are what we think. So many of our thoughts are, that's not possible. So because we think that's not possible, we're not even going to try it.
Right.
So let's start because we're really good at taking the pill. If we don't eat well, can supplements and herbs help us?
I think they do have a role.
Okay.
I always do encourage people to change their diet first. And sometimes when people change their diet, they still have some residual issues. And so, for example, we recently did a study in people who had the pain of diabetic neuropathy. This is where the diabetes is attacking your feet, and they hurt. It feels like needles and pins. Sometimes it's a stabbing pain. Sometimes it feels like your feet are on fire. And so what we'll often use, in addition to a completely vegan diet, is we make sure that they have vitamin B12 because that helps stabilize the nerves.
How much, Dr. Barnard, a week should you take or a day?
The amount that you actually need is 2.4 micrograms per day. However, all the pills have more than that. And so when a person is taking vitamin B12, they go to the store and they'll find the store has 100 micrograms, 500 micrograms, 5,000 micrograms.
Yeah.
The beauty of it is that it is not toxic in overdose. You'll see a couple different kinds. You'll see cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin. Those are the technical words for B12. They both work. Probably more people are taking the methylcobalamin nowadays. But the reason that we're using that, yes, it's a supplement. It has no adverse effect. But for some people, they're running low. And if you're running low, you don't have good nerve function. But I got to tell you something. In the middle of this study, people's neuropathy was getting better day by day by day. I had a guy who was a bass player. And he had neuropathy in his fingers. He said, I can't get through 2 songs. After changing his diet, his neuropathy got better. And he said, I can play again. And a month after that, he came in and he said, and my erectile dysfunction is gone. He got a lot better. But can I tell you about something else? I wanted to, for so many people, they neglect, I want to call this the natural supplement that's in your body anyway. You know that when people go out and they run, if they're really big time runners, they get this little runner's high. Mm-hmm. The runner's high comes from endorphins that are in your brain. So you didn't have to go to the store and buy a bottle of pills. What these are actually compounds made in the brain, and they're nature's painkillers. So your body thinks, okay, you're running, you're probably traumatizing your feet a little bit. Let me give you a little squirt of endorphin in your brain, and that makes the person feel better. Well, it doesn't just help you if you're a runner. If people have any kind of chronic pain and they're exercising regularly, that will help them too. Two other things, and these are going to surprise you a little bit. Okay. Researchers in Canada have put people in brain scanning machines. And what they are looking for is the release of dopamine in the brain. Because dopamine is the natural reward chemical, and it also has some pain-killing properties. And physical exercise that I was mentioning not only triggers endorphins, but it also triggers a little dopamine, which is why people get hooked on running. You know, why do you want to do that? They're kind of hooked on it. But that's not the only thing that triggers it. Being with other people will trigger it, which is why social support is so important, which is why your show is so important. When people are with other people and getting support from other people, they get a little extra dopamine, and the more intense that support, the more dopamine they get. And the third thing, in addition to exercise and social support, came to us in a research study. This was a study of the pain of giving birth. There were a group of women brought into the study, and they were asked to rate their pain. Okay, the birth process has started. My pain's maybe a 2. Wait a minute, it's a 3. Wait a minute, it's a 5. And as the birth process proceeds, the pain went up to 6 and 7 and 8. They did the experiment again, and they said, rate your pain. And now everyone got a massage, a massage during the entire birth process.
Wow.
And they rated their pain less. They did the experiment a third time, and now what they did was no massage, but they gave everybody music during the entire process. And specifically music that they had picked out, that they really liked, played at a volume where they could really get into it. And they rated their pain about the same as they were getting a full body massage. So with that, we've then gone into the operating room. And let's say a patient is going to have hip surgery and they're nervous. I can give them a pill. I can give them Valium and calm them down. Mm-hmm. But they feel a little out of control with it. They don't feel quite themselves. Don't do that. You give them music that they're listening to, music that they picked out ahead of time, and you discover the anxiety breaking effect is better. The anxiety is less than with the pill. They come out of the operation, and you say, you can ask for pain medicines whenever you need it. If you play them music during the recovery period, at 24 hours, you add up the pills they took. 48 hours, add up the pills they took. Substantially less if they're getting into music. And I started learning about this personally because when I was a kid, growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, my parents had the idea that any civilized person ought to be able to play the piano and to play another instrument. So I was like chained to my cello and piano. And I have had bands all my professional life. Mm-hmm. And I never connected it with medicine. But my current band, I don't think I ever told you about this, Lillian. I have a band.
I'm at the edge of my seat.
I do. I have a band called Carbon Works, as in we are made of carbon, and these are our works. And I'm going to send you this, and you can play this on the air. It's the most beautiful stuff. I had one of our songs was number 13 on the adult contemporary chart this past summer.
No way!
Yes, it was. It's called Louder Than... Go on YouTube. Uh-huh. Go on YouTube and put in Carbon Works. Uh-huh. And that song was called Louder Than Words. And we've got a dozen other videos, and they're really nice. They're very cool. So anyway, the point that I'm making is that researchers are using music like a drug. And in the extreme form, let's say I've got an older person and they're agitated with Alzheimer's disease because they're not understanding what's going on around them and they get upset. And it's 4:00 in the afternoon and grandma gets agitated in the nursing home every afternoon. Okay, I can medicate her, I can tape her down to her bed, I can do these things. No, don't do that. What you do is you play music for her. 30 minutes, starting just before that time where she will get agitated. Music triggers the release of dopamine in the brain very much in the same way as alcohol or drugs would, but there are no dangerous effects. And she calms down, and the music has to be something that she liked when she was young because she is now resonating with it. So we are now using music and physical activity and social support like a drug.
Wow. That is incredible. We're going to do a series on Alzheimer's pretty soon, and that's good to know. Maybe I'll bring you back for that again, because you started the series not too long ago, right. When you talked about Alzheimer's and diabetes and what they have in common. And Dr. Barnard, time is so short and it flies too fast. I want to encourage you, my listening friend, to go to P as in Paul, C as in cat, R as in Robert, M as in monkey, .org if you want to learn more about the work Dr. Neal Barnard is doing in the world. You're an amazing man. I want to thank you, Dr. Barnard, for sharing this information. When we come off, I really do want to talk about herbs, and we'll record that, and then that'll be like a little bonus for our listeners that want to learn a little bit more. And to you, my listening friend, if you call 407-373-5959, that's 407-373-5959, not only are you going to get a $20 gift card from Native Son, but you will also get a card of the book, Foods That Fight Pain, from Dr. Neal Barnard. Thank you, Dr. Barnard.
Thank you, Lillian. Great to talk to you again.
Yes, and this is Lillian McDermott signing off, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Very good. Okay, so now that we've signed off here, okay, tell us about, that's great. I've seen studies, Dr. Barnard, about dementia patients. There's a woman that sings praise songs. I reached out to her. I think she was on the show. I'm trying to remember. And she touches them, she sings songs, and they actually come out of their catatonic state.
Well, it's because when a person has Alzheimer's, the first thing that will go is word recognition and name recognition. So you're still yourself. You might even be driving, but you can't remember the name of the actor in a movie or something like that. The words drop out. And then different neurological circuits will drop out, but the music recognition circuitry is preserved for a long period of time. And so the beauty of it, it gives you a connection with a person where you've lost the more verbal connection.
My father right now is going through, and my mother, they're going through some memory loss issues. And so I am embracing this topic because I want to learn more. I mean, the show has been a great teacher for me. And people like you, teachers like you that have come on the show have taught me a new truth. And I'm very grateful. And it's very painful to watch the people you love the most, the ones that were your heroes at one point, become very fragile and weak, and you can't do anything. You can't even rationalize with them. You can't do anything at all.
Right,
so knowing this truth is going to be good. My dad used to be, he had every single track. He had the reel-to-reel, he had the 8-track, he had all of that. And now the house never plays music. When I go visit them, I always bring music. Yeah. And when he's in the car with me, I play Danny Rivera. Danny Rivera, one of his favorite singers.
That's the thing. So often in the nursing home, they'll play the Beatles' greatest hits played by the Holly Ridge Strings. If your dad hated that music, that's not the thing to play.
No.
And maybe the last time he heard that was when he was at the dentist getting a root canal.
And don't remember that.
Don't play that music. Play the music that was meaningful to them. When particularly in their childhood or teen years, early adulthood, and if you're the caregiver and you didn't know the person, talk to their family when they come visit, and pick out that music. If bluegrass isn't their thing, that's not what you ought to be playing.
That would drive me up the wall. Although I love bluegrass at certain times, but
it would be the thing. It's just a question of what they really like. So
I love contemporary Christian music. I sing it. My instrument is my voice, and I also play the piano.
There you go.
I play the piano. I play chords. I just play to accompany myself so that I can practice. That's it. But all my children learned how to play the piano because I too believe that every civilized person should learn how to play the piano. Okay, so before we go, Dr. Barnard, and I appreciate your time, and I don't want to rob you of any more of it.
That's all right.
What are some of the herbs that you would recommend for people that would like to enhance? Because I've been taking, I don't know if I told you this, but I was in a car accident.
Oh, wow.
I was in a car accident June 8th. I was rear-ended. And I have 4 herniated discs. C4 through C7. I have not taken any pain medication. None.
Wow.
I've used my microcurrent technology, my microcurrent therapy that I own by Avasia. And I started using that right away. I'm still a little stiff, and I'm still doing therapy. But here's what I did. I started taking, also ginger and turmeric. But that's about it.
Okay, well, those are good. First of all, I'm sorry that you went through that. But if other people are listening into our conversation, it's good for them to know that discs will heal. It's not quick. It takes time because they don't actually have direct blood flow. The oxygen they get diffuses from the vertebral bodies. So the discs are just so slow to heal.
Well, interestingly enough, at first, I knew something was wrong because I had never experienced that kind of pain before.
Right.
But it was manageable with the microcurrent therapy that I was doing. And so I went to my neurosurgeon because I work in the medical field. I bring ancillary services to doctors, and I want them to be holistic and natural.
Right.
And that way they can, it's a win-win. They win, the patient wins. And they were just like scratching their heads. How could you have 4 herniated discs and not be like in bed 24/7? And when they actually did the MRI and they looked through the slices, they said, wow, your spine is pretty healthy.
Yeah.
It's healthy. I don't know what they look for. Perhaps maybe you can share, but they were saying that they could tell by the way when they were looking inside my spine that it was healthy.
Right.
And it could tolerate more than the average person.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I completely
Does that make sense?
Yes. And it's partly, because of the way you're healing, but also you probably started off much healthier. You probably had good, vigorous blood flow. So trauma to you is something that you might be more resilient than somebody else. Really quick about supplements. You mentioned two, and I'm not going to talk about the amounts because the amounts depend on how concentrated it might be.
Okay.
It might be the
Fair
brand,
enough.
the brand. But let me talk about the types. You mentioned turmeric. Turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. You're right. There's been a lot of interest and a lot of study. Ginger, same story. But ginger has another function. I don't know if you've heard about people using it for
Stomach?
yeah, for all kinds of stomach things. And if you're going to go on a cruise, 3 days before the cruise starts, have some ginger. You can add it to just vegetables or your soup or whatever, starting about 3 days before, and you'll notice that your stomach is more calm during the cruise. There are prescription drugs you can use too, but ginger is a good one. For head pain, this is going to be a surprise, not really an herb, but coffee, which I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm not going to necessarily recommend everybody do it. And regular coffee drinkers sometimes have more headaches than other people, but that's I think it's because
They're dehydrated?
Well, that, but also coffee itself is a mild pain reliever. And so if you've got an out of the blue headache, a good 1 or 2 cups of stiff black coffee can sometimes make it go away. But on the other hand, if coffee is every single day, sometimes people's pain threshold is reset, and they tend to have more pain. It's sort of like using a painkiller too much.
Yeah, that you had mentioned that when you take pain medication too much, then your body kind of gets used to that.
And the morning cup of coffee acts that way. So if you're using coffee in kind of an exceptional situation, it acts like an herbal pain reliever. For people with migraines, also feverfew is something you'll see every health food store has it.
Feverfew?
Yeah, it's a weird name. Feverfew, and it's an old name that came from the fact that it was used as an anti-fever medication. It's a leaf, and it's put into little capsules. And the good brands are standardized, but they will say on the label how much of that particular one you should take. It's safe. Some people really do get some benefit from it. So use it in addition to the diet change that I mentioned, not instead of. Mm-hmm. For people with nerve pain, I mentioned peripheral neuropathy of diabetes. There are some people who are now using alpha lipoic acid for that. It's probably the best studied of the anti-pain medications for peripheral neuropathy. And once again, the doses are something. Take a look at what the way you see it on the bottle, because different ones are different strengths. But it's called alpha lipoic acid, LIPOIC.
Okay.
And
what about a herb called Gotu Kola?
That's a new one for me.
Is it?
Yeah.
What about St. John's Worts?
St. John's wort may be useful. It's used for mood, and still under investigation. Black cohosh is another one that a lot of women will use for
menstrual pains.
Menstrual pain for their cycle. And
for hot flash.
Yeah, yes, and hot flashes. Also gamma linolenic acid. You've probably heard of people taking borage oil and similar kinds of oil, evening primrose oil.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And they'll use those for sore joints, and they do work to a degree. The active ingredient is called gamma linolenic acid, and you'll see it marketed. But you can just get borage oil or there are probably 3 or 4 different versions of it that you'll see at the store. Evening primrose, probably best known, but I mentioned borage oil because it's a little more potent.
What about fish oil? I know that we've talked about a vegan diet. We've talked about so many different things, but they recommend fat and oils for the brain. Does that make sense?
It makes sense in a way, in that if you look at people who eat fish instead of other meats, their risk of Alzheimer's is less. To me, that doesn't mean that fish is a good idea. What it means is that meat was a bad idea. And that the fat that's in fish is overall somewhat better. It has somewhat less saturated fat, that's the bad fat, and somewhat more omega-3, that's the good fat. The problem is it's really quite limited. The amount of omega-3 in fish is still small. It's most of the fat in fish is not omega-3. Most of it is either saturated fat or various kinds of unsaturated fat that don't do you any good. And the bad fat content of fish, dramatically higher than for vegetables and beans and fruits. So
what's a good alternative?
So if a person is taking fish oil capsules because they want the omega-3, that they are an anti-inflammatory, you can take the capsules if you want to, and then you try to hope that they took all the mercury out and so forth. But they actually will offer vegan DHA. That's the vegan omega-3, which it's DHA is the kind that the EPA can actually use. However, and you can do that and it's fine. However, I suggest something slightly, to me, a little bit more natural.
Okay.
I'm going to suggest this, is that when people overdo it on omega-3, either as fish oil or as vegan DHA, and again, you can take these. The health food stores have them. It's probably not going to hurt you too much. But what we do see is two things. There have been some suggestions that their cancer rates might rise a little bit.
Really? Okay.
Why that is, I do not know, but I have suspected it's because it's also disabling the immune defenses a little bit so that your body can't recognize a cancer cell quite as effectively as before. I suspect that's a very small effect. The other adverse effect is bleeding. Sometimes people take fish oil to be a blood thinner, and there are times when you want to be able to stop bleeding. So you'll discover I cut myself and it's just not. I'm not able to stop bleeding. That's something to be concerned about. So here's my natural solution to it.
Yes.
If we are eating our kale or Brussels sprouts or other green leafy vegetables, you don't think of them as having fat in them, but you send a leaf of spinach to the laboratory and they will call you and say, did you know that 8 or 10% of its calories are fat, natural oils, and a very large proportion of it is omega-3.
No way.
It's omega-3. Now, there's not a lot of fat in green vegetables. It's about maybe 8 to 10% of the calories, as I said. But a surprisingly large amount is omega-3. Your body takes that omega-3 and enzymes in your body lengthen it to make DHA. Now, if you are eating your green vegetables with French fries dripping in grease, then all those other bad fats that you're eating tie up the enzymes and your body has trouble making the DHA out of it. So don't eat those extra fats. Eat your green vegetables and eat lots of them, and you'll get the omega-3 from the natural source.
Wow. Because, I've heard, I used to take my son to a psychologist to help him with behavioral issues. And he said to me that DHA and EPA, they found that it's great for the brain, and that many of people that have impulse issues or hyperactivity or whatever are missing that. And so he was talking about schizophrenia and how it was helping all these people. How disappointing to hear that there's a link with cancer.
Well, stay tuned. I'm nervous about taking supplements unless we really do need them, but there has been some concern there. And the big concern was really for heart patients where they're still on a rotten diet. But they're hoping that the fish oil is going to save them, and it really hasn't worked very well. So stay tuned on that.
That sounds like a good, yeah.
But for me, that's always why I try to go for the food solution if I can. Big exception, I mentioned B12 earlier. B12 really is best in a pill. It's just about the one example of that. And the reason is that your body can absorb it very quickly and very easily. So if I've got a person where they're low in B12 or I'm not sure, I will give them a pill. Now, they go to the store and there's B12 sublingual.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
With B12 you can put in your nose. You forget it. It doesn't matter what form it is. All the B12s will work.
Really? Okay, so you don't have a preference if it's sublingual versus inhaled or a shot, or you're thinking?
Well, I mean, the shots work immediately and you can put in a huge amount, but you really don't need that. Mm-hmm. Even people with pernicious anemia, in some cases their doctors will give them a large oral dose. It doesn't have to be sublingual. It can be one that you swallow. They work about the same.
Okay. So with the 2.4 micrograms a day is what we need. Can we take B12 once a week and utilize all that, or should you do it every day?
Probably, or maybe every 2 or 3 days. So if you go to the store and you get a big one, it's maybe 500 micrograms or 1,000 micrograms.
Yeah. Cut it in half?
Yeah, you can cut it in half, or you can take it every 2 days or something like that. But it's happily not toxic, even if you have a fairly large amount.
Very good. Dr. Barnard, I'm so grateful to you, and I'm looking forward to getting you on our next show. I'm hoping that pretty soon, I know you're really busy and you have a lot to do. I'm looking forward to listening to your music too.
Hey, let me show you something.
Okay.
I'll pop one of these in the mail to you. Carbon Works.
Awesome! Thank you. That is beautiful.
Yes. Yep. Oh,
How
yeah.
have you been playing with the band?
This band, this is my third record. This band came out. This record.
I did not. I mean, I'm on your site right now. I didn't even know you had a. I guess I need to look more into music.
the band's website is carbonworksmusic.com. Carbonworksmusic.com. You'll see the whole band. They're out of this world people. Now you're a modern person. I'll send you a CD. Or maybe you're ultra modern. Maybe you do vinyl. Who knows? Or downloads. Anyway, I'll send it to you along with
CD is great. I can listen to it in my car. Thank you. Thank you. I'll have Ashley get it.
It's great to talk to you again.
Nice talking to you too. And I'm looking for next time you're in Miami. Let me know. Maybe I'll meet you and grab some lunch.
That's a deal.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnard. And I'm looking forward to seeing how people embrace this new truth that you bring to the world. Thank you for doing this.
Well, since I started my day with you, it's going to be my best day ever.
Yeah, you spoke to my heart. Thank you so much, Dr. Barnard. Take care.
Thanks, Lillian. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye now.